Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into what is essentially a fast-paced, high-stakes intellectual detective story. We're traveling all the way back to the 9th century to look at the groundbreaking, and I mean absolutely brilliant, work of a philosopher named Al-Kindi.
Okay, let's dive into this, because it's a massive, provocative mystery. Can you actually use the rigid, unyielding rules of mathematics to definitively prove the existence of a divine creator? It sounds wild, right? But that's exactly what we're going to explore.
So, Part 1, Al-Kindi's Grand Quest and this fascinating 9th century logical puzzle.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that these are real, documented mathematical axioms pulled straight from Al-Kindi's historical treatises. You see, he was on a mission to reconcile the physical limits of our world with an eternal creator. And he didn't kick things off with theology. Nope. He started his argument with the absolute, undeniable laws of math.
Which brings us to Part 2, the math of finitude, or how he proved the world isn't eternal.
To prove God exists, Al-Kindi knew he first had to mathematically prove that the physical universe is not infinite, it has limits. So here's his first axiom. I want you to treat this as an irrefutable rule for the logical game we're playing right now. Two magnitudes of the same kind are equal if one is not greater than the other. Pretty simple, right? Makes perfect sense.
Let's keep the momentum going. Rule number 2. If a magnitude is added to one of two equal magnitudes, they must become unequal. Again, a straightforward, completely undeniable mathematical reality. We are building an ironclad foundation here.
But wow, here is where it gets absolutely fascinating. Al-Kindi introduces what we call the nested infinites paradox. He argued that two magnitudes cannot both be infinite if one is smaller than the other. Why? Well, because that smaller infinite magnitude would eventually measure or mathematically fit into the larger one. And doing that completely contradicts the very nature of infinity itself. You literally cannot have a smaller forever and a bigger forever. And the final rapid-fire rule, the sum of two finite magnitudes must always be finite. If you add two limited things together, the result is still limited. By stacking these axioms together, Al-Kindi's math logically destroys the entire concept of an actually infinite physical world. It just doesn't compute. And this brilliantly illustrates his ultimate conclusion for this section. Since all physical bodies are composed of matter and form, and they exist in measurable space and time, the world itself is a measurable magnitude. Therefore, the world absolutely must be finite. And because it's mathematically finite, it definitively had a beginning in time. It wasn't just always here.
Moving into Part 3, the logic of causality and finding the trigger.
So if the universe had a definite starting point, what triggered it? Enter Al-Kindi's absolute rule of causality. He maintained, with this intense, unwavering academic certainty, that everything that comes to be must have a cause for its existence. Nothing just pops into being for no reason.
Think of it like a giant domino effect, a finite series of events. Al-Kindi clearly argued that a chain of intermediate causes can't just go backward forever. If the universe isn't infinite, its chain of causes can't be infinite either, right? So there absolutely necessitates a prime starting point. Someone or something had to push that first domino.
Which leads perfectly into Part 4, the true efficient cause, or creation from nothingness.
We've reached the intellectual climax of his whole argument here. What actually pushed that first domino? Well, the crucial point is this. Al-Kindi identified God as the true efficient cause, or in his specific terminology, ibda. Unlike all those intermediate causes that are just helplessly reacting to prior causes, God is the eternal source. A source that acts, is never acted upon, and ultimately brought the entire finite world out of total nothingness. Let's summarize this grand proof, because it's brilliant in its structure. Mathematics proved that the physical world is measurable and finite, meaning it absolutely had to have a beginning. And then, the ironclad logic of causality proved that only an eternal, infinite, true one could possibly be responsible for creating that beginning. It's like a perfectly locked puzzle. It really leaves us with a staggering thought to chew on. If our entire physical reality, literally everything we can measure, touch, and experience, is just a finite series of effects, what truly exists outside the limits of time and space? I hope this explainer sparked your curiosity and leaves you pondering the profound fragility of our universe. Keep questioning and keep learning.